Hi everyone, Laura here. Welcome back to the Ultimate Transformation Plan. I lost 125 pounds and I am here to tell you through mind, body, and soul how to transform what you're going through. First we're starting on the inside and then we'll work into our food plan and into exercise, but without tackling the emotional stuff around this, it won't be a permanent change. It'll just be another diet. I've been through all of them and I need to explain a lot more. So what I'm going to ask you to do, this is going to be a little bit longer because I have a lot to explain. If you don't mind a little bit of storytelling, this is going to have some of that, and at the end of this video we'll talk a little bit more about what you need to do. But if you bear with me through the storytelling, there is a spiritual aspect to it, and I was really nervous about that, and I will explain why. I have to have cue cards because I'm that nervous to talk about all this, because today's topic is how we're addicted to our story and how that keeps weight on us. And I really didn't know how I was going to approach this. I didn't have a clue, but I don't know if you guys have been watching these episodes or these videos, but it seems to be something that's a little more spiritually guided with me. And I'll tell you a couple of things. So I have to confess to you that I've been going through, I'm ashamed to say that I feel like I'm going through a bit of imposter syndrome. I'm still working on my own self-love. There's no question. I know I'm supposed to talk to you about what I've learned in life and what's happened to me to make me overweight. It's hard, you guys. This is not easy. It's like confession. And I have to tell you though what has helped me to release the weight, because I'm here to help you. And I know this journey is a spiritual one, and losing the weight permanently, the only way I can approach it is through something to do with spirit. And I have to tell you, I'm pretty afraid to talk about the God stuff or angels or guides or any of those kinds of things. I'm in fear of not being believed. I'm going to read this because I'm too scared to say it, or accepted, or entertaining enough. I was writing down, like, what am I afraid of? But this journey is not about my fears. It's about helping those that need to hear it and need some salvation. So to calm me down, I looked up online, and I'll read it to you guys, the amount of people that actually believe in God. So I'm going to post a Wikipedia pic of what I'm going to read to you now. I have it ready. And okay, so I wanted to know, it says that 68% of all the unaffiliated express belief in God, and out of the whole U.S. population, we're talking U.S. because that's Wikipedia, it's demographic, wait, let me see. I'm seriously stumbling over my words because of my nervousness. So atheists, only 2.4% of all of the US, it's probably similar in Canada, self-identify as an atheist. A 2013 poll, although this is quite long ago, showed 3/4 of the US adults say they believe in God, down from 82% in 2005, 2007, 2009. So he's losing points. But regardless, most people believe in something higher power. So I use that in order to help me to calm down from when I talk about this sort of religious stuff, because I've never been a person that's overly excited about dogmatic kind of religious things, because I just find that when man gets involved in it, a lot of times it gets tainted. And I'm going to tell you some stories about my journey in my early years and to now, and spiritual connection. And the message that I had for this video, it came in a dream this time, and it was super transformational and powerful, so much so that I knew that I had to take this video in that direction. And so get your coffee, your drinks, your whatever you want to have to sit down, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of some spiritual stuff that's happened to me, some really, really incredible, magical experiences that I'm going to do my best not to downplay, and to be brave and to be fearless and to tell you it from my heart, because these are things that were very, very transformative for me, or they kept me alive, and I need to share them. So if anybody's had like any experiences, like I like to look up things like near-death experiences. I've always been pulled towards mystical things. I didn't know why. I just always was pulled towards it, and I definitely feel like this whole journey for me is quite a divine journey. So okay, I'm going to get my cards together so I can like be in order of things, because I had to plan this video out real well. So if I have to look down at my cards occasionally, it really is just because of a bit of my nerves. Hopefully when I get going with the storytelling, it can take over, but just bear with me on this. And it will all tie into the weight loss, I promise you. I'm not just taking you on some random journey, but you have to stay through the whole video to the end to hear why and how it ties together. And it's important for me to tell you about my addiction to my own story. And that story I thought was a completely different story until I got told otherwise, you know, in the last few days. It's like, no, Laura, that's not actually your story. I was doing a lot of surface talk, like, oh, my story's to do with my family and, you know, my heritage and all these other things I had planned, and that is not actually getting to the root of the problem. The real story is I believed that I was unlovable, and that comes from childhood. And I will explain a little bit more about my childhood, and so you know a little bit more about me and where I'm coming from. So when I was a little girl, I'd say between the ages of 6 and 10 years old, when I figured out, or I understood that we lived and we actually died, and like, where were we? I felt like, you know, the movie The Matrix. Even as a little girl, I felt like we were in some kind of matrix. Like, I could see it. It felt like I was an old soul. It felt like I was here. I knew that I had to do something. I didn't feel like I should be a child almost. I felt like I should have been an adult, and I had to wait it out to be able to like really express myself until I was older, especially since in my childhood I was seen and not heard, really not allowed to speak my truth, or my thoughts didn't really mean too much to my parents. So when I found out who had died in my family, I was super passionate about, as a child, like nobody taught me this stuff, although I did go to Catholic school. I went by my, in my bed every night, saying my prayers, and I prayed really hard to keep those people who had passed on safe. I was like in shock that we actually lived and died. I was just trying to grasp onto the concept of living and dying in life between the ages of 6 and 10. And I prayed every night really, really, really hard. I never met a lot of these relatives, like my grandma. She died when my mom was pregnant with me, uncles, whoever I knew in my surrounding family that had passed, I prayed really, really hard for every night. And like I said, I always felt like I was in a bit of a simulation, like in a matrix. Something was in me, constantly asking, wondering, why are we here? Like the big questions a small child maybe shouldn't be asking, but I was already asking them. Like I said, I went to a Catholic school, and in Catholic school they teach you about the devil. That's just sort of what they teach you. I don't know if any of you guys have gone to Catholic school and understand where I'm coming from, but they put a lot of fear in that whole religious dogma in you. And whether that was fear they put in me or whether it was really happening, I'm going to lean on that it actually was happening, because so many other experiences happened to me to do with this. I always believed I had like the devil under my bed as a child, and I would like jump up on my bed really quickly and like hide my toes, feel like it was going to come and nip at me, sort of. I felt the presence of like kind of like an energy, a demonic energy in my house around me, and I felt very, very tormented very tormented. Like if I was going to sleep at a friend's house, my dad only let me sleep at one friend's place, and that was an Italian family, and I couldn't even stay there because I felt like there, you know, that too strong of that energy still around me, and I didn't feel somehow protected. I don't know why. So I couldn't sleep a lot. I still have a sleeping disorder. I have a really difficult time sleeping. My father was really critical of me as a child. I had really pretty long hair, and he cut it really short like a boy. So I looked like a boy. I wanted so badly through my childhood for him to be proud of me, for him to see me. I wanted to like come along to all of the, he used to go fishing and hunting all the time. I wanted to go along, you know, and I would stand up for myself. Just tell me one good reason why I can't come. And he would, that was the one time he laughed and he let me come. But I always just felt ignored and neglected. And my mother would drink a lot, and they smoked. It was the 70s. And I would not get hugged by them or, you know, told I love you or anything like that, except for when my mom got really drunk. And then she would sometimes creep into my bed late at night when I was already in bed sleeping, and I could smell like the alcohol on her breath. I could smell the smoke, you know, from smoking on her breath. And it did not feel like a pure hug. It felt like she was coming to get something from me instead of give love to me, if that makes any sense to you. And it felt very inauthentic and very like take from me. And it was kind of like sad, right? But that was my reality. She was always kind of in competition. And even if my father gave me a hint of attention, like one time when we were in Italy, he held my hand, and it was rare, but he did this time because he was in Italy. He felt proud, held my hand, and my mom like hit my hand away from him to not have his attention, something like that. And those are memories that kind of stick with you. And if she did buy something for me, like I remember she bought me like this camel coat, and it itched my neck. But because she didn't do those kinds of things for me a lot, I pretended it didn't itch me, but then I didn't want to wear it, and she tortured me about that damn camel coat for like 2 years. So yeah, my childhood not so great. Okay, I'm just going to catch my breath and continue on. I'm telling you my life story because I really believe, in storytelling. When I went to university, and this is an aside, the Indigenous, I went to a storytelling course, and it really moved me. And I think that we learn best through story. And I know this is not really kind of how YouTube does it. A lot of times they just kind of like, quickly, top 10 things, blah, 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 really fast. But I can't tell you this stuff quickly. This is big stuff. So hopefully you can hang in there and my stories aren't too boring. Anyway, my brother was really mean to me. He would lock me in closets, throw me downstairs. But I did have one person, and it was my grandfather. And my grandfather was very sweet to me. He didn't tolerate any of the other grandchildren for whatever reason. He was mean to everybody. He was horrible to everyone else. I didn't see him like that. I was born when my grandmother got hit by a car by a drunk driver and died. I was in my mom's tummy at the time, and so I was, and then my uncle died at this like 2 weeks later. So I was born into a ton of tragedy, a ton of sorrow, and he kind of grabbed onto me when I was a child. He lived with us when I was little, and it kind of took me like I was his in a way. And he used to like build me little doll houses and really sweet to me. He did drink sometimes, so that alcohol demon was around, but overall he was super sweet. He did stuff me full of chocolate bars and pancakes for dinner, which did not help my weight, by the way. But I happily ate it because he was so nice, and I cherished him. So my very first, like, aside from what I told you about the devil and all that kind of stuff and praying, my first psychic experience, I was around 9-10 years old, and I was coming from a weekend from my grandfather's place, and he came downstairs, which is a little, well, no, he usually came downstairs, and he was waving goodbye. My mom picked me up, and a whoosh came over me, like uncontrollable whoosh, and I had my mom stop the car, stop the car, stop the car. and I rolled down the window. We had to roll them down in those days. And she didn't know what was going on, and I had to scream out the window, I love you, Grandpa, I love you, Grandpa, like feverishly. For whatever reason, I don't want to cry, I knew that it was the last time I was seeing him. He would pass away in his sleep of a heart attack that night, and he was my lifeline too. He was my lifeline. And he was, like I said, I was the only one that he was nice to. And when his funeral came around, it was so odd because I was treated like the widow because everyone couldn't stand him, but they had to give him a funeral. And literally I was the one, you know, by his coffin, standing by him. And I still have the letters that he wrote me, you know, the necklace he gave me and the ring he gave me, all on my bulletin board in my room, just so I can keep him near me. Okay, let me collect myself one sec. All right, sort of collected. So this whole, so he was gone. I was alone again in my family. So we ended up moving to Arizona when I was about 12, 13 years old. And this whole devil thing came up every day. Every day he seemed to like be around or haunting me in some kind of way. And I just kept my prayers going. I kept the whole thing going. And one day, I gotta blow my nose. Okay, so one day I had a dream, and I didn't have very many like remembered dreams that were super vivid. So I need to tell you about this dream. So then in this dream, it started out where I was seeing like a boy I liked at school. There was like a chessboard and there was a room, and I saw a boy that I liked from school, and then that boy's face morphed into the devil. This is kind of freaky. My mom, I saw my mom, her face turned into the devil. All like people that I knew, like family members and things like that, turned in, and I was like suddenly put into this area that was people filled with, like, there was water and people were in the water, and the devil was going after these people in the water, and I kept trying to like dive in and save these people in the water from this devil. And then all of a sudden, flash forward, we were outside some building, and I was one-on-one with the devil, and I was all alone, and he started to pick up a boulder, like a rock, to throw it right at me. And for whatever reason, I used my hand, and you know, you're in a dream, so I used my hand and I grabbed the rock and I threw it back at him, and he kept picking up bigger boulders slowly, and my arms were getting so tired, and I kept throwing them back with all my might, throwing them back. Finally, he picks up this just massive boulder, massive boulder, like so huge. And my little self, I'm trying to like, this boulder was so heavy, and I was like catching it, and it's like, you know, one of those cartoons where it was like slow motion. And then all of a sudden in me, I don't know where, I did a prayer to God. I said, you know, to God, please, with all the will that you have, can you please help me with this moment, help me to overcome this. And at that moment, this white light shot down in and through my body, so strong, and in that white light I felt complete peace, complete love. Like, there is no describing this feeling. It's not anything like, you know, love. It's a full love, like full. And it was so strong and so warm and so peaceful and powerful. I was like, whoa. And it put a power in me and a strength in me. And my arm went back like this. And I threw the boulder as hard as I could. And it gave me like the supercharge of energy, like, you know, a shot of energy. And hit the devil in his stomach. And then he went flying back in the air. He laughed as he flew back, but he flew back nonetheless. and I woke up in the morning and my arm was torn apart. It was battered, bruised, sprained, so much. Like I had to get like what do you call it, the wrap that you put around it in a stint or whatever it was. So whatever had happened, whether I was thrashing, whether it was real, I did ask a friend's mom who was a specialist on dreams, and she said no, that was real. And so I choose to believe that it was real in its own way, in its own dimension. It was real. And after that fight, after that battle, he never bothered me again under my bed. I never had to worry about that energy around me. It was just like it was like a miracle where I was freed from that constant burden of him being around. So there's a reason why I'm telling you this story, I promise you, and it's getting there. Couple more little, like I have to build this in a progressive way or it won't make sense. So fast forward to age around 20-ish, 20, in my early 20s, maybe 21, 22, something like that. I was working as a makeup artist, and I might have been a little, maybe 22, 23, something like that, working with a photographer, and we were traveling out of town to do photo shoots. And so we were in hotels and stuff like that. And she was quite spiritual, this photographer I was working with. She was wonderful. And she gave me a book. We had a conversation at some dinner one day, and I was kind of telling her a little bit about my spiritual struggles. And she gave me A Course in Miracles from, or told me about it. I can't remember if I bought it or if she gave it to me. From Marianne Williamson. I don't know if any of you have ever read it. It was like my first introduction to spirituality that didn't have to do with dogma, that didn't really have to do with a religion. It was just like it's hard for me to even remember because it's been so many years that I read it, but it transformed my thinking because it was about Mary Ann's experience, how she was funneled, like what's happening to me right now, where she was getting fed this book through her, which became super famous later on. Well, it was then too, but what happened in that book when I was reading it, it's like my body and my mind and my spirit got plugged fully in. And when we went on this trip, I was asking for signs from God because I wanted some proof, that he existed and that it was real. And I just was asking for signs, and something told me the signs would be a white rabbit. So I looked up online. I'm going to see if I can pull up white rabbit. One second. So I'll try to remember to post this up here, but I'll read it anyways. The white rabbit represents the hollow. The hollow defines the emptiness and the opportunity to be filled. If you are furthering your own spirituality, which was exactly what I was doing at the time, at this time you will have the support. If you're delving into the unknown through fear, the inner courage, fear with inner courage, you are being commended. So I was really grappling with the idea of separating from my parents, separating from my family because of the toxicity from it, and going alone. And when I went on this trip and making that decision, I had another dream. And in that dream, this happened again, it was like a dream, but I wasn't quite asleep. I was kind of between asleep and awake in that moment. And this being came, like God-like being, like what you would imagine God to look like, with the beard and the cloak. But he was like supersized, and I was like mini, like a size of a baby almost. And then what had happened in the dream is he put me on his lap, and he stroked my hair in the most soothing way that you could ever imagine. And he reassured me, and he said, I will be your father. You don't have to worry. Like, don't think of other father. Your father is not your father. I will be your father. And when he stroked my hair, the comfort that I was experiencing with all of that was so like the white light That feeling was like that white light. I knew it was real because I had had it before, and there was nothing else like it on earth that I could possibly describe or experience like in this realm. And from that, I started to slowly emotionally detach from the pain of feeling unlovable and rejected, and you know, I had weight on me. I had those things, but you know, this was just like, you know, along the journey, an important part. I just want to say, in my life, and I might have to refer, like, I've already died 1,000 deaths. I've already overcome some of the worst adversity that you could possibly imagine, with mental, physical, and, you know, abuse. I felt so afraid of being alone all my life. Alone, 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 alone. A fear of being alone. Forgetting that I never would be. I just forgot. Sometimes life gets you down. I want you to think of each pound as a burden that you should not be carrying. You have to ask yourself, what is weighing you down? What shame and guilt are you trying to, what shame and guilt do you have? You need to shed that shame and guilt in order to shed the weight. You have to shed that. Okay. Some of the guilt I'm also having to admit that I'm carrying is, I completed my journey of weight loss. I started with 2 people close to me. It didn't work out perfectly for them yet. I'm not saying it's not going to. And because they didn't get to go through and have this reward with me at this time, I carry a lot of guilt for that. I really believe that weight is a metaphor for carrying burdens that are not yours to carry. You have to release those. Being healthy in your body, taking care of yourself is your right, and it's the key to your healing. So I need to tell you the final dream and the final message for this all to come together. So it was a couple nights ago. I was going to do this video yesterday, but I was sent the day to spend away. Remember, I told you guys, I don't know if you saw my short, that the fire alarms kept going all day long. I've been pushing myself and burning the candle at both ends, and I kept being told to slow down and to pace myself and to create balance, and I wasn't listening until the fire alarms went off enough where I had to take a few hours off, because I haven't been doing that. I've been going from morning to night, either working out or preparing or doing this. So I thank you for giving me that rest. I needed the rest, and I needed to smell the flowers for a couple hours. But so night before last, I was sent this message through the dream. The man that I loved was on it was thin ice. Okay, we were both on thin ice. The man I love was on a body of water with thin ice, and by his side was not me, but it was another woman. So I'm on this little small circle of ice, and they're on, you know, another part, and there's water between us. So little 2 patches of ice. Their ice cracked, and they went under the water, and they began to drown. And I could feel like, you know, I went through so many emotions because I'm seeing him with another woman, for one, which isn't easy, but my need to save them was inside me, and I wanted to jump in so badly and save them, but I knew for a fact that I wasn't strong enough to get under that ice, and I would just drown. Like, there was no way. It's like watching somebody in a burning vehicle. There's no way to save them. And I went through just unbelievable torment in this dream, and I was believing that they were going to drown, and I was sitting on this thin ice myself, alone on this piece of ice, barely holding on. this large man appeared with golden hair, muscles, just super tall, golden wavy hair, and just came in, not a word, and he went under the water and he saved them, and I watched him save them, and I was like in awe, and I'm thinking, oh my God, he saved them, and I was alone and thinking to myself, well, I wonder if he's gonna save me. And I couldn't believe that they lived. They were down there such a long time. And so I'm on my little floating piece of ice, and then he popped up out of the water and he sat with me. And I explained to him how guilty I felt, how I wanted to save them both. And he said that I would have surely drowned. And it wasn't for me to save them. I needed to be alone. I needed to save myself first, to cherish and to love my own life. It's not God's plan, he said, to have me sacrifice my own life for everybody else. He needs me to value myself now so that I can be what he wants me to be. He's got a plan for me and who I was meant to be. So the message, sometimes our lives feel like they're on thin ice, don't they? The message is not to be the sacrificial lamb. To listen so carefully to your intuition because it's guiding you. That you are lovable. You just need to ask for guidance. Just ask for help. Let go of toxic addictions. Let them go. Let go whatever story that you're telling yourself. You're here to learn. You're here to heal, and you're here to connect to your highest self and to let the guides help you to quiet your mind and to ask for help. I love you all. People fear, but they don't understand. There's too much noise around us. If you have to, get quiet, put everybody aside, put your phone aside, put everything aside. Listen to the messages. You're gonna get them, you're getting them, you're gonna get them. And that will release your addiction to your story. It'll release that you're unlovable because that is absolutely, absolutely opposite of the truth. I love you, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.